Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the third channel walk and talk video. In my last one, I went from the north of London all the way across to the south and over the river. Today I'm going from the north of London, or vaguely the north of Zone 1, let's call it, King's Cross Station, all the way over to the east. The east of London is really interesting. The west is traditionally the rich part of London, and the east is traditionally the poor part, the working class bit, whichever way you want to say it. And the reason for that is because, I mean, there's actually a lot of fun reasons like factory fumes and stuff, but basically all the industrial stuff was stored there. The closest part of London to the sea, and therefore all the shipping to the rest of the world, when London was kind of the capital of the world, was obviously done by the east. And so all the shipping, the unloading, etc., the docklands, the warehouses, they were all traditionally in the east of London. They no longer are in the east of London, but you know, it takes a long time for an area's reputation to redevelop, and that process is called gentrification. Wow, I bet you've never heard of that. I bet you need your favorite internet YouTubers to explain that to you. But no, so we're walking over to the east, and so we're walking from, you know, traditionally very well-trafficked areas to not so traditionally well-trafficked areas that are becoming that, because again, cities need to expand, and the easiest way to expand is instead just to redevelop what you've got, because did you know land is finite? So yeah, it's really interesting because we're walking into the cheaper parts of London as we go further in this video. But by cheaper, it's interesting that instead of meaning like, oh yeah, so you know, there's some really affordable places out there, I mean no, instead of spending multiple millions on a tiny parcel of land, like one of these, you know, let's pretend these little pubs and stuff, minus the pub. Instead of paying multiple millions on something like this, you would instead spend just like, ooh, only $500,000, only $750,000. What a bargain you're getting for a little piece of shelter to go home. Yeah, in London, it's very expensive to live, but people choose to do it anyway. And doesn't that tell you something about the city? Or maybe it tells you something about Stockholm effect. I'm not sure which way around it truthfully is. But yeah, I'm walking east, and I don't think I've ever walked from St Pancras over to the east of London. I am still getting around by foot where I can. You know, my this is, by the way, the same route that I walked in my e-scooter video, where I was stopped by the police and was like the second of 3 stoppings I had in a month. That made me realize I'm just gonna stop chancing that, like, you know, police officers won't look at me the wrong way or take something I said the wrong way, or maybe honestly just enjoy being able to mess with people and having a legal avenue to do so. And so instead I'm walking around until August, or like July/August. It's one of those 2 months. You see conflicting reports, but that's when they'll be officially, that's when the rules come in, etc. Until then, you can only rent e-scooters. So rentable e-scooters, okay. Also, interestingly, e-bikes are okay, so I want to make a video on those maybe, if I can pick one up, because e-bikes go a lot faster than e-scooters, but because they've always existed, they're fine. Whereas e-scooters are brand new, which means now's the time you got to do stuff with them. And you know, I could talk about that all day, but the reason that I could, because it's interesting, because I made so many videos about scooters, and still I want to talk more about them. You know, I am stopping myself. Oh, isn't this a cute little white pigeon just hopping up some stairs? I'm gonna not look at pigeons. That's what the guy in A Beautiful Mind did, and he went crazy. And therefore, logically, the link there is that you look at pigeons too much, you'll go crazy. That's definitely what it is. It's definitely not a story of mental illness. It's a story of birds. That's how I took that movie. Anyway, so the reason that I can talk so long about e-scooters, and I want to talk so long about e-scooters, even spending time that could be made, spent making other useful videos that you care about more than that. But the reason that I can do that is because it's something that I am passionate about. And passion is a really weird word, because, you know, like, I had a hard time understanding it for the longest time. Like, there are things in life that you want to do, that you find yourself drawn towards, and there are things in life you don't want to do, you find yourself pulled away from, I find. Playing video games for me was something I was always drawn towards. I was excited to come home every day and play some games, and you know, something I was always pulled away from was yeah, actually a lot of things. You know, let's just make a joke and be like, I was pulled away from eating vegetables. By the way, it's so quiet, there's no cars, so you can hear my voice echoing off the streets in a way I really actually don't enjoy. But like, when I'm recording these videos being crazy to myself, I like to believe everyone's like seeing me and being like, well, that's just a crazy man walking along. That's what I want. I don't want people to think this is like a YouTube video, because then it's like, oh yeah, you're doing real well with that YouTube channel there, and it's like, oh god. Anyway, well, there goes the silence, I guess. But anyway, so I've been thinking about passion in this like thing, because I never really understood it for the longest time. There were just things I enjoyed and things I didn't enjoy. Always enjoyed games, and so I assumed, yeah, that's all my passion is there. But something I've realized as I've been doing YouTube, this is a pure accident, and I don't know if this is, like, again, when things that seem incredibly unlikely happen, you know, and there's like two ways you can take it. One way is that, wow, an incredibly unlikely thing happened. The other way is that actually it wasn't incredibly unlikely. You know, there's like a fun thing of like, wow, a 1 in a million event happened. And it's like, yeah, a 1 in a million event happens to every 1 in a million people, which, you know, like, what are your odds of finding someone who's 1 in a million? Well, there's 67 million people in the UK, so there's 67 people who are that 1 in a million just inside the borders of my nation, let alone the 7,000 1 in a million that exist in the globe, you know? Like, things that seem really rare eventually are going to happen to enough people. That was a bad example. A better example would be like, you know what? It sure is rare that I keep getting hit by red lights, but it's like, well, you're more mad by, when you get hit by a red, it's like a more emotional event than when you see a green. A green is just keep doing what you're doing, you don't think about it. A red is stop, you gotta wait here until we tell you can go. And so it's a much more emotional event. So you feel like you hit the reds all the time, even though that's kind of not how, you know, traffic works, right? Like a red is just, a red happens for maybe a third the time for traffic light. In fact, at an intersection, it's roughly half the time would be spent red. And anyway, this is a bit of a side tangent to the idea of passion, because I think I'm really lucky that one of the things I realized very quickly that I enjoy about YouTube is, you know, one of the things that I would even say is my passion in this world. I was doing it all the time when I was in school, because I always hated school. I really enjoy learning weird facts, and I love sharing them with people in my class, but I hated school. Like, really, really hated it. And so I just assumed, like, yep, can't wait to be done with this. Education sucks. You know, we link education and school so often in a way that I think is genuinely harmful. I think we need to admit, we need to just have it be out there that, like, yeah, education, school, all these sorts of things. I want a bike like that, by the way. That sounds like, I want to try one of those out. They sound fun. I know they're traditionally used. There's something disability, but it doesn't mean it's not cool. Anyway, so yeah, this is, by the way, where I turned right in that East Skidder video. Today we go forwards, and instead we head towards, I don't actually know. Again, I just know we're heading east. I don't know what part of the east we'll hit first. We'll see some signs or something. Let's look, a co-op bike. Anyway, I think linking education and school is a really bad thing, because school is not just there to teach you about things, it's there to teach you partially discipline, right? You show up to school, depending on your school's time. My one was 8:45 every day. You show up there at 8:45 every day, you know, and you leave at 3. And then when you go home, you're meant to do stuff there, which is another layer of garbage we'll ignore for now. Let's not rant about homework. But, you know, you show up to school every day. That is a requirement of you. If you don't enough, you get into trouble, which practically means later your parents will get into trouble for not putting you there, right? So school, it's a requirement. You go there every day. There's a layer of discipline. Inside the school, laws apply, but also not really. When you hit another kid, I told you, I mentioned in the last video that I'd been involved in free school fights. Those are assaults. that is a, if they wanted to, I don't know if it, I think when you're above the age of 10, you can be tried as an adult in the UK because of the two 10-year-olds that kidnapped a 3-year-old after school one day and then forced batteries in all of its orifices and tied it to some train tracks. And I wish I was joking when I said all of those words, but you know, like in the UK, you can be tried as an adult after 10. I think I committed assault. I think I committed very serious crimes. But the thing about school that they teach you is like, yeah, there are rules that apply to the world, but then there is these internal rules. I've always thought that's the craziest thing. Like, yeah, in the world you're meant to do this, but in the school it's not that way. Like, oh, basic like transparency and democracy and governance now doesn't apply here. Over here, there's a teacher. When you're in their classroom, you're in their control. If they call in someone else from outside that classroom, it's that, you know, there's a hierarchy you're following, and it teaches you about a lot of things. I'm not going to cross the street. Apparently I'm going to cross this street. Okay, we're good. The bus was just edging forwards over there, and it still is in a very concerning way. I think by taking all these weird lessons and combining them together and calling it education, because when you go to university it's the same thing, but you pay for it. Or if you don't live in a country where it's paid, the government pays. Or if you live in the UK, it's a weird hybrid system where the government pays, but then calls it a debt and then taxes you on your income to pay it back. You know, there's a lot of systems out there, but the point is, it's the same thing. Like, oh yeah, in school, school rules are the thing. It doesn't matter what crimes you commit there. It doesn't matter what the things are there, because it's that organization's remit first, and then later the government's remit. Like, you know, one of the things I still find interesting is a guy brought a knife to school and he got expelled. And either that's a very serious crime by itself, like, you know, maybe he threatened someone or whatever, I don't understand it entirely. But also, if it's not a crime in and of itself, then did that guy just get expelled for nothing? Is there, you know, he broke a rule so severe that his education doesn't matter anymore? You know, you get me? I think we kind of necessarily have to combine education with these other elements, but I just think it's misleading to just pretend like that. This is all education, because one of the things I realized after YouTube, it kind of started on the main channel, and now we have what, like a second channel that's basically about the same thing. I love finding information that is interesting to share. there's this weird thing in information, like some information is inherently kind of interesting and some information is inherently not. I can't even, to this day, I can't put it into words. I can't find a process for why this is true. But some pieces of information are so interesting to share, and some pieces aren't. And finding those bits that are really, really the crux, the interesting part of conversation, of sharing, of anything else. That's something I just love. You know, like when I find one, I'm so excited to tell people. Like, you know, for instance, e-scooters in the UK are legal to rent, not to own. Everyone who hears that has some bizarre response, like, huh, you know, it's a piece of information that makes no one happy. Also, no, actually, I'm going the same way that I did my e-scooter video. I thought I turned right, but I recognize this road. And I guess this is the start of a cycle superhighway. So I'm going towards Farringdon right now. Yeah, Farringdon, I'm excited for that. But yeah, basically, I love that there are like tiny little pieces of information that people find very interesting. This is how I think this is like one of the key things about, oh God, okay, we're going down this little side street. Isn't this, by the way, look at this street right here. I love weird things like this. There's a street that's like this thin, and I'm sure I can just walk around it and end up right back on that main road. I love weird quirks of cities that weren't planned but just happened, and now like there are things there. And you know, when the Great Fire of London happened, London burnt down. We rebuilt from the ground differently. They used the Fire of London as an opportunity to modernize, stop building things out of wood first of all, because fires can happen, but also to, you know, to like modernize by 1666 standards. When the Blitz happened in the UK, we were, I don't know if you guys heard about this war. I think it's called the World War, something about Germany, I don't know. But inside of this war, by the way, look at this. It's just this thin little strip, and then the same thing's true here. But then there's a road in between them as well. It's just endlessly interesting to me. Anyway, so the thing that I think is interesting is like we rebuilt London again in 1945. Not all of it obviously was destroyed, but a lot of it was. And so the city is very old, but it's also had lots of reconstructions. But especially when you're rebuilding parts of the city, and especially when a city's already there, if you were to rebuild London from scratch, again, this city of over 8 million people, this city of, you know, like it's in the hundreds of billions of gross domestic product happening every year. Like there is a lot of value and a lot of people going on here to keep things simple in that sense. Oh, I think this is a railway track actually. You can't see it, but I can. It's an underground line. Interesting. But you know, I guess that's why. So there's that pub exists on top of a railway line. That's even more interesting. But there's this thing that I find to be. I used to really dislike this about society. We don't live in a society that we would build from scratch today. We don't think, again, every generation, we don't decide, yeah, let's redo this again. We don't say, hey, yeah, I don't like your society, friend. By the way, here are our buttons. This is, by the way, in central London, the traffic lights are like very Americanized. Like you push a button and then the button does nothing. And then on a timer, what happens is you get the thing coming across, and then there's like a countdown, so you know how long you have left across the road. In fact, I was gonna just walk across the road now, but just for all of you, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait till the timer shows, and you can see that, I guess. It'll be nice. It'll be real nice. I don't know that it will be, actually. Oh wait, when it's green, you don't see the timer. You only see the timer when it's running out. So when this timer starts to run out, I can show you that one maybe. That might be interesting. Or maybe not. Come on, timer. You gotta run out here. Whatever, you know how times work. It's a number of seconds. It counts down. And then you can't cross the road anymore. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. 7, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm here for. Anyway, so the interesting thing about society is we don't make it how we want it to be in absolute terms. We make it how we want it to be relative to where we are now. And I actually think, again, one of the things about growing older is like realizing that's how we do things. But it's so interesting that we, again, it's so interesting because it seems like we're making, you know, again, objectively, we're all making like these terrible compromises like, oh, you know, if we were gonna design society from scratch, would we design it this unequal? If we were gonna design society from scratch, would we have this many people living on the streets or whatever? If we were going to design society from scratch, would we build pubs above train stations? I mean, yeah, of course we would. That's a cool thing. But, you know, there's so many weird parts of London that only exist because a thing was there, and then another thing was built separately, and then maybe that first thing got destroyed, and another thing was there. The things didn't want to be next to each other. I always give the example of where I grew up. There was an all-girls school, like young, like, you know, like, I want to say like 13 to 16, 11 to 16, I don't know the ages of schools in the UK, but you know, there was an all-girls school next to a prison, and one of the like high-grade prisons too. And it's like neither one of those two things would have thought it was smart to be next to each other. If someone was centrally planning all of this wouldn't have happened. But also, this office is called Arse Man, office furniture that works. That's funny. By the way, we're in the city of London now, the city. Which means I need to go more to the left. So I'm gonna take a left turn right here after this co-op. But there's so many things that we, you know, it's kind of the same with your day-to-day life when you think about it. And it's one of those things that's impossible to fix even when you recognize the problem that like, what you do on a day-to-day basis, it's not what you'd want to do if you were thinking, again, if you were locked in prison for 10 years and you had to make and you only had one day of freedom, you'd make that day of freedom count, right? If you, I don't know, if you had broken legs for 5 years and then, you know, your legs got better, that's how broken legs for 5 years work. You know, you'd make use of your legs the way you wish you always had, I feel like. Not, you know, being deprived of something, traditionally, the theory is at least, it'll make us do it better. But like, we could be making perfect days all the time. I always hate the stereotype of like live every day like it could be your last, or like say I love you because it might be the last time to the people you care about. You know what? Nah, it could be. That's true. Look how tiny this street is. Would we design it that way? I don't know for sure. You know, it is entirely possible, plausible even, that it is entirely reasonable to assume that yeah, those things are true. But also, you know, day-to-day life is more complex than that. We like to believe with these amazing big brain, you know, like machines. But really we're cavemen. We're sophisticated cavemen, I would say. We're cavemen. Or you know, monkeys, I think some people like to say. We've got very basic brains that are like moment to moment. You know, we're interesting. An avocado. It's, by the way, because we're in the city of London, like everything's shut. It's also a Sunday. It's also lockdown. You guys familiar with lockdown? I don't know that you are. You know, here's an interesting thing. I think, you know, regardless of whether you're like a big fan of it or not, I think the cool thing about having so much of your legal life being restricted for, it's been a year now. Oh, wait, let me, damn, wish I'd led with this. This is one of those things that I don't know why it's spooky. So a year ago today, there's no significance in a year ago today. Like, lots of things happened. You know, 23 years ago today, or 30 years ago today, the UK's biggest rail crash happened. Is that interesting? Probably not. But what's more interesting is a year ago today is where the first non-travel related case of this weird thing came into the UK. This we call it COVID these days. Novel respiratory coronavirus disease. Anyway, so the first case that wasn't linked to travel was discovered a year ago today, as I record this, not as I upload this, but one year ago today that happened. And it's really spooky to be like, yeah, that was when we knew it was here and we couldn't trace where it got to here from. Every other time we felt like we'd stopped it, probably before it got out to our people, we could trace the people of that. But like, when we found that first case, it was in rural Wales, which makes it even more concerning. Like, wow, yeah, they have an international airport in Cardiff, but this is a long way away from Cardiff, and it's likely that the case got there from London, which is where most international traffic goes in and out of the UK. And so that was the moment we're like, oh, it's here now, huh? But even, and I think that was the moment. Retrospectively, it's so easy to make a perfect solution. Like, retrospectively, it's so easy to prepare for things that we know happened. The struggle is in preparing for things that might not happen. The struggle is in preparing for things that could happen, might happen, that some percentage of the time do happen. But like, if you go through this big building, actually, I think we should. The struggle is preparing for things that like sometimes can happen. Preparing for something that then doesn't happen can feel bad, like that's something people would rather you didn't do, because they've got lots of other priorities above, protecting themselves from some pretend apocalypse. See, the person who walked past me just then uttered the phrase like some pretend apocalypse, and it's like, oh god. Anyway, I think about that too much. The people I walk past and the tiny snippet of a conversation they're hearing. But anyway, so that's when we realized this thing was here. But again, no one like thought of it as being a big thing because, and this is an interesting thing about being too prepared. Or like being over cautious. We had, again, like when you warn people about something, when you try to tell people about how serious something is, it's easy to exaggerate certain parts of it. So what we had heard, what we had seen, the entire, via the media, via, like coming right out of that one city, Wuhan, coming right out of Iran, what we'd seen is like, ooh, life is being altered. People are dropping dead in the streets. There are, the death toll is rising every day, and we, from this crazy deadly disease. Because obviously, you can't. They only test a certain number of people. You only test people if they're like displaying, that they're bad with something. You don't test a guy who's like, yeah, I got a little bit of a cough yesterday, or you don't test a guy who has no symptoms, obviously. But because of this like fear everyone had about like, oh, it's this thing that's like killing, it's crazy, everyone was so worried about this mega thing that when it got here, when that first case appeared, it was still like, huh, spooky. It wasn't, oh my god, it's here now, this is the moment to stop. It was, huh, isn't that interesting? And obviously, like, to some great extent, it was, there were people who were prepared. There were people, again, you have to admit, there are some people, even though they would say prepare for everything, there are some people like, yeah, now's the moment to shut it all down and lock down the borders, lock down the people, do what we're doing now, but do it a year ago. But in reality, most people were just like, yeah, well, I'm so glad we're not at China level, we're not at Iran level, we're not at Italy level, and that shows to me something about current situation, and really about any situation. When people are over prepared for something, they can't see it. When people have got an over dramatized version of something, because drama spreads, scary things spread. If you're just like, oh yeah, there's this disease, kills like 1 in every 10,000 young people and across an entire population, including weak and frail, kills like 1 in every 100, maybe every 200. We still don't know for sure. The science saying stuff like that is not the most appealing stuff to spread. But that would be that's the truer message. If you'd spread the true message about, hey, a very infectious disease that kills 1 every 200 people, kills a lot of people. No country, in fact, has had 1 in 200 of their entire population be killed, because no country has had their whole population get it. The closest you're getting is like 1 in every 500, 1 in every 600 people, something like that on the death tolls. And you know, those countries are seen as like disaster zones. 1 in every 600 people dying from this thing. And I think that's what, if we'd been prepared for a disaster of that scale, if we've been prepared for this is deadly, not because it will kill you, but because so many people get it, and some of those people might be, again, insert category here, vulnerable. Some of those people might be. I think this is the Barbican, by the way. I've always wanted to be near here. Actually, I always wanted to go inside this. This is this is the City of London, one of the wealthiest parts of London, and they built a council estate here, thinking, you know, why is social housing only a thing for you know, people who need it? Why isn't it for everyone? Why don't we make it for middle class people too? And so, middle class council estates. As you can see, it's super brutalist, like incredibly, like, you know, it doesn't take a genius to work out this isn't the style people are going for in their high rises today. And I even point you at it, I don't think I can. But it's super interesting in my opinion. Anyway, so one of the things that is so interesting to me is this like over preparation probably works on a high level. Like if everyone's terrified of this disaster level event, everyone's making a small, you know, a step to take it. But what if instead everyone's ready for the actual event? You know, like car crashes, everyone assumes, yeah, it's people going 70 miles per hour, killing each other on the freeways, highways, whatever you want to call them. And as a result, people do try to drive carefully there. But it's also like, nah, that's not where most accidents happen. Statistically, it is on slow speeds. The most accidents occur. You know, people T-boning each other at intersections, stuff like that. That's where the scary happens. And you know, again, like when you tell people how something really is, you run the risk of having some of those people then be like, it's not a big deal. And it's like, well, it still is a big deal. You know, if car accidents decrease by 10%, you're saving hundreds of thousands of people. But like, it's not a big message to the individual. Whereas we can over dramatize things. We can turn things into like, oh yeah, there's this thing, literally a new coming of the plague is coming. But when you get people prepared for that, worried about that, you know, they're following it every day. And people were following this story every day. But then when it happens, they're like, takes a while for them to actually take hold. They're like, oh yeah, there's a real thing happening here, huh? There is a very infectious disease that won't kill me statistically, but might take me to the hospital, where I'll clog up those hospitals, and then might, as a result of that increased hospital load, start killing people who need it for other reasons. Because here's the deal, a lot of people die, and a lot of people don't die because we save them with our healthcare resources every day. I think maybe that's the thing we should do about healthcare, rather than being like, hey, yeah, hospitals are these places where people go in and they miraculously get better. You know, again, you're missing the picture of that. People go into a hospital and then, you know, depending on the disease, depending on their age, depending on what they have, they've got some % chance of coming out A-okay. If that hospital's not there, their chance goes down significantly. It doesn't go to zero. It never goes to zero. But we have these things because, on average, they increase survivability substantially. And increasing survivability is good. We want people to be alive as a society. That's my take, at least. You know, you might wish for the death of society, in which case, boy, let me tell you about this terrible thing that's happening. Something I want to talk about here, but this really is like a giant, like I didn't realize that there were tunnels underneath the Barbican estate, and I guess there's parking for all the residents too, and these like shops. It's interesting. It's right here in the City of London, like some of the most valuable real estate in the country, in the world even. It's just like, yeah, we just built it because we thought middle class people might want social housing too, and it was a really good idea actually. See, here's another thing, right? We talk about social programs like they're exclusively, and we try to stigmatize and make them as, you know, for when you need them as you can, for when there's nothing else. But one of the results of that is we have this thing where it's like, yeah, there's people don't want to be there, which is maybe what you want. You might want to lower people using them, but it means that I think there are so many benefits out there that people don't get if they're proud. They're like, yeah, I don't need them, even though they're paying towards maintaining them. There's a lot of, and then what you're actually incentivizing is people who have no shame. You know, if hypothetically the downside is meant to be shame, then people who feel a strong shame response are the ones who are more likely to to turn down benefits. The people with a strong shame response are the ones who won't, and the people who without shame, the people without fear of stigma, or even the people who like lean into the stigma, like, oh, I guess this, you know, like unemployment is for lazy bums. I guess I'm a lazy, you know, like that sort of logic could start to apply. And some of those worries that like some people address by being like, yeah, let's have more universal programs. Let's have things that are good for everyone. One of the, like, people get excited about infrastructure, sure. People get excited about roads, and people get excited about a new bridge. Maybe see second channel video hint there. People get excited about new big things that benefit everyone because they're everyone. You know, they're not in these disadvantaged groups. It's actually kind of a paradox that you get, because a lot of everyone in society agrees, let's make things better for anyone disadvantaged. Let's make things better for, let's just be more frank about it, for people who are worse off. That's important. When you're doing well, you have an obligation to help those out. Not doing well, I would just argue, and a lot of people, you know, like half the political spectrum thinks the other half literally wants to kill, you know, cut those poor people in half, rather than, you know, like you get a weird. Also, there's this street is called Ropemaker Street. It's weird how many like repeated street names there are in London. I was looking at a Ropemaker Street recently. It wasn't a very nice place. Anyway, so it's really interesting to me that like we assume the best way to help is like, oh yeah, and then we're like going to target it specifically at them. But something about targeting people for being, you know, humans, there's a certain power that people like. There's a certain, this sign is definitely wrong. I don't know how they got it all the way across the city, but it says I've got to turn right and walk 2.5 miles to get back to King's Cross, which I'm just so confused. I guess they spun it around. Okay, that makes more sense. But you know, humans have a desire towards strength. At least some humans do. I think it's one of those traits that determines where you fall on a spectrum. And like, no one wants to call themselves disadvantaged, even if they are in that disadvantage. You know, that's why we always come up with new words to just like underprivileged, disadvantaged. We don't just say the not well off, the poor, the plebs, you know. And because you know, like those terms are mean. That's one of the reasons. Ooh, we're diving into a whole different tangent here. One of the fun things to me, you know, okay, so now on Twitch, these are site-wide rules. You say these words, it doesn't matter what your community thinks or what you think, it matters what Twitch thinks. You can't say, obviously the N-word, like whatever, that's a societal rule as a whole. It's weird, like it transcends all other rules, but sure, you know, I'm not here to comment on it. Whether I think I should be allowed to comment on it is not relevant to those who disagree with me, so it's fine. We're going to leave that to the side. But then there's the F slur, not the F word, the F slur. That is just as bad, equally bad. And then there's the R slur, and it's interesting because that third one gets to me, because it is one of those casual words people use all the time. When you say, you know, there's this funny line in The Office. You know, like, you don't call retarded people retarded. That's mean. You know, you get me? Like, you would never do that. That'd be incredibly cruel. To you know, like you wouldn't call if using it's you can use this for almost any other word. Like, it's the mean thing about it. You're not trying to say someone actually is that. It's just a word that casually slips in to mean bad. Simply enough. This is nice, by the way. We're definitely not in East London yet. We're still deep in the city, it seems. And you can tell from the niceness of all of this. Or maybe it's just like this, it was slightly east before, and now it's just been submerged into the city. But I think we're still in the city of London, so maybe we're not going to make it east today. We've got a full, we've got plenty of time for this video. I got 59% battery. I am talking until the wheels fall off. I don't know what wheels I'm referring to, but wheels will fall off. And I will talk until they do. But, you know, we have these words. And so we have a word that will describe a group that, you know, like idiot, for instance. I didn't know this. Idiot. Like it used to be the word we used to describe people who are mentally incompetent. And so like, you know, kind of think of it as being like the 20th century equivalent to the R slur, you know? Think of it as being that. And we are continually adapting. Now we can't say, you know, one of the things I found interesting about the internet is autistic has become the new, you're like, you know, I think it's slightly different. It's not quite overlapping with the R slur, but like, autistic is becoming not a way to describe autistic people, instead a way to describe people who clearly have some different mental tendencies because of what they're finding interesting, or you know, what they're doing. You know, I just dropped $500 on you know, Tesla shorts because I'm autistic. You know, or the beautiful combination you see on Wall Street Bets is you combine autistic with the R word, and it's like, man, yeah, we like the word is there trying to be offensive. By saying it is offensive to society, you're just giving them power. You're fueling that fire. You're throwing your coal into it and being like, yeah, I'm offended. And that's exactly why the word works in their context. But outside of the Wall Street Bets context, where they're deliberately saying things offensively, and that's why they're funny. Because, you know, offensive humor, you can pretend it doesn't exist where you like, but people like the things you can't say are interesting to people. That's my take on things. But the weird thing to me is that we're continually like reinventing words that we can't, you know, once people agree we're not going to say a word we can't say, or once enough people do, because no one ever, there are still people everywhere saying the N slur. Why don't you say the N slur? Why is it, let's not think about it. But look at that little lonely lamppost coming out of the side of that building over there, by the way. It's got a City of London crest underneath it. And then it's just, like, these are really nice offices, but there's just a lonely single lamppost. And it's like, could they not have built one on the street somehow? Is there a good reason why not? Anyway, so I'm gonna take a quick drink of water if that's okay. Don't want to be rude here, but I am thirsty. Been walking for a while, huh? Anyway, so we are trying to say words that are, and it's interesting, this like continual battle we're doing, and that makes me realize, to go back a couple tangents ago, it takes me back a couple of tangents to the idea that like we live in the world as it is now, and then we slowly shift it in a direction or the other. We you know, again, like, some people try to build their ideas from scratch. They ignore the world as it is now, and they'll be like, nah, I think, you know, for instance, all of this, you know, like, because if you say is, I want perfect equality within tomorrow, right? If you say that and you want that, that's your goal. The most effective step to achieve that would be obviously to work out the average amount of money that a person has, you know, wealthy and people are negative, you work it out, and then you're like, okay, so we'll take all the money into this giant pile and we'll distribute it evenly. Or if you don't like the idea of a central governance, you're like, what I'll do is I'll take all this money, I'll take, you know, what the richest person has to give X amount of money to every person with zero until they hit, you know, let's just say if 17,000 is the average wealth. Though if you have 17 billion, you give 1,000 people, no, it's 1 million people. Whoa, Jesus. Wait, 17 billion really 1 million thousand? Yeah, it is, I'm dumb. You give 1 million people there 17,000. And then, you know, then you're done because you've got 17,000 left. I guess you give 999,999 people 17,000, but let's not get caught up on this one. Anyway, so, oh look, the Elizabeth line. It's cute to see all the infrastructure. There's a brand new line in London. It's been in the works like 25 years, and it was finally finished in 2018, and I'm just kidding. It's been delayed endlessly since then, and they've been trying to, they're hiding the little thing that'll tell you where you're going in the area. That's interesting. I wonder if there's like graffiti reasons why. And if there is graffiti reasons why, it makes you question how you can even build all this public stuff anyway, right? Like, if we all do this collective thing and then some of us despise it and try to like destroy it or defame it, or, you know, in some way, let's say they're throwing graffiti on it, they're trying to just alter it, make it slightly better for them. But most people dislike graffiti, or at the very least it has, most people are neutral or dislike, we'll keep things simple. And like, is that a fair decision you get to make unilaterally? Is that you utilizing your power by itself? I don't know for sure. I'm not trying to make some grand point. I'm just trying to say, hello, how you doing? My name's Toycat, and I look at birds. Aren't they interesting? Don't you want to look at pigeons all day? Why do we insist on why do we insist on focusing on the complex things in life when there are birds eating birdseed that we can enjoy instead? Yeah, cute, interesting. Anyway, so I think one of the things we do of our day-to-day life is we kind of see it as like, it is how it is. You know, you go to work today, you get home, you watch the show you've been watching. When the show runs out, you find a new show to replace it. Like, routine is surprisingly common. Like, I've always heard, you know, routine is something that autistic people, the group autistic, not the trying to describe doing funny behaviors autistic. It's something we described as being very good for that group. But it's something I think everyone in society has a certain norm toward, meaning towards. Also, look, these are they built little pathways here, but they're just like parts of the road with little men on them and little dividers. I assume they're gonna put some like outdoor dining here maybe, but that's a shoemaker. You know, let's not question it. Let's just assume that when we come back here 2 years from now and everything's perfect, it'll be great. But I think what we should be more willing to do, rather than wanting to be radical in this vague system we have no control over, let's work out the system we do have control over, and that is your life. Your life is the thing you have the most control to do. This morning, I had a thing that I was meant to be doing. And I realized, you know, like, rather than making today a day I don't like, all it takes is me going around. I'm still going to head where I need to head in East London, in case you're curious. We're going to get there. But on the way, let's record a video. Let's talk about some things. I enjoy these opportunities to do this. By the way, here's an interesting thing, right? They have these like walkways around the city. They had this great idea. Again, City of London's so interesting for just weird quirks. They had the idea of like, why are pavements on the street next to the cars? What if they were above the street, connected to the buildings and stuff? And so you see a bunch of remnants of them. Again, the end idea was that it was terrible. People don't want to walk upstairs just to walk on the pavement. The pavement is meant to just be the most convenient, direct route between two places. That's why it failed. But I think there's something so interesting about, like, if we look back at it, just raised walkways to get people around. That maybe only I find interesting, but maybe you disagree. Anyway, so before we round this one out here, because there's actually not. Should we ever round it out? We haven't made it to East London yet. I'm just in skyscraper land right now, which is distinctly not working class Docklands that now have affordable houses that cost just a third of a million if you're real lucky. But if I'm at Liverpool Street, east of Liverpool Street is definitely East London. Yeah, I think I went a bit too far south. Like, up there is Shoreditch, which is the new, every like 5-10 years, a new part of London hits the gentrification train, and just up there, that's the newest part. Like, it's kind of northeast London as opposed to just East London. Actually, I wonder if it is officially East London or northeast. Like, London's divided into 8 regions, like obviously north, east, south, west, northeast, southwest, southeast. You know, you don't care about the last one. No one cares about northwest. Anyway, so I always get curious because they have such distinct profiles, all of them, despite being just geographic dividers. And again, it's interesting that, like, when you divide people in that way, we kind of stick to those divisions. Some people are proud to be, yeah, you give them a negative descriptor, they're proud to be that negative descriptor. Yeah, crossing the street is, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna. But well, across the street we go, I guess. Oh God. Just as I chose to cross, the light turned green. By the way, new road layout for social distancing is something I find so interesting here. Like, can you really call road layouts social distancing or not? That's my big question. Also, that guy had a Pret. I wanna get a Pret. Should we do it in this video? I mean, what's stopping us, right? There's something. The reason I like these videos, by the way, like I sometimes find myself compelled to watch them. There's something about just real life. You know, again, something cities are interesting to me for is just everything is there to you. In fact, one of the things about this big situation that became clear to me very quickly is like this is the downside of living near a lot of other people, and it's borne out in the data that something like 45% of people who live in London have become infected in the last year, and that is you know, like the reason it's not related to a high death toll is because it's a pretty young population, but still 45% of people having had it, and you know, that could be even higher. It could also be a little bit lower, but like, you know, it could be as high as 50, as low as 40, or high as 60, low as 30. But the point is, it's an insane percentage, roughly half of people having caught the thing, and most of those people, in fact, legally, all of those people are obliged to limit their contact to some crazy extent. But like most of those people, this building's interesting. Most of those people were trying super hard not to, but like, you know, the proximity effect just stops that. Whereas if you live on the island of Skye or the Isle of Man, it's closer to like a 1 in 1,000. The difference in those rates, 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,000, can make the idea of living somewhere super isolated and rural really appealing. And in fact, to a lot of people, now they can work from home, they are lured in by the idea of like, oh, because the big downside of living rural is if you want to go do things and, you know, things that involve other people, you're going to be statistically further from them, right? But now people are like, well, if we're not seeing other people anyway, if that's been legally restricted, why don't we just live out there? But yet, in that same way that like, oh yeah, you've been in prison for a year, what are you going to do when you first get out? Enjoy freedom again? It's interesting that I feel like it might have the opposite effect. This is against what big players with money involved are betting, so I wouldn't take my word for that on this one. But I think everyone is betting on a big collapse of cities. London's population has fallen by about 1 million in the last year. That's one of the highest drops since literally we were being bombed. You know, here's a fun one. Would you rather die of a disease that killed you over 4 weeks, or be bombed and know about it for a few seconds? Or maybe not in a few seconds, just, something's happening. What's that loud noise? It's getting closer. Boom. You know, there's a morbid one to share, I guess. Yeah, I find it to be very interesting. I find it to be very shocking that there is going to be, to me, there is going to be some form of mass return. Maybe bigger. Again, like, I think what people want to do and what people do ends up being different. Like, if people do what they want most in their hearts and their dreams, I think we'd see like a big triumphant return to cities where people are like, yeah, I mean, what are the odds of that happening again anytime soon? But also all these things that I've missed. Like, you know, maybe you've enjoyed going out, climbing a mountain illegally, but like whatever. You know, climbing a mountain every day, as opposed to, you know, going to your favorite coffee store, getting some craft burger, Mexican food, whatever. You know, getting one of the literally 10,000s of options available in this city, as niche and specific as you want them to be. There's so much good food. There's so many good fun options. Like if you're riding a skateboard, why not come through here? You know, the things that people have built, because there's so many of those people that when all of those people build just a tiny thing for everyone else, you get a lot of very interesting stuff. This being one of them. But I think we, by the way, finally left the city of London. Look, that's the London Wall. We're now at the London Wall. I can't see it though. Is that the London Wall? No, that's a church. You know, let's. I've never been to this. Actually, I think we're at Tower Gateway. No wait, our Old Gate. Roman Gateway at Old Work, seen from inside the city. Also, that just used to be the edge of London City. I'm assuming it still is. Very interesting, right? Very interesting. So anyway, I think there's going to be this huge return. Site of Aldgate demolished 1760. Man, that's sad. It used to be a wall separating the city of London from the rest of London. Now it's now it's a sign on the side of a Boots. See, progress, right? Progress isn't always perfect, but it is always interesting. It is always interesting. Okay, you know, I think this Pret is open. It's got the endless coffee thing out front. If they do it, one of the things I did after my video where I last spoke about this, offer capped at 5 a day. Trust us, more than 150 coffees a month isn't just a good idea. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to hide you inside here. Actually, I'll just turn you off for now.
No, just iced coffee.
Okay, can I get a iced Americano?
Black or white?
White please.
Iced black apple?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, iced white apple?
Yeah.
That'll be 2 or if you
Got that. I might have got myself an unlimited coffee subscription off that second channel video where I pointed it out, because they recently announced that they will still do iced drinks as part of the subscription. So here's me with an iced Americano. What is an Americano? I wish I could tell you. I understand latte, it's like milk and coffee. I understand cappuccino is espresso and water, I want to say. An Americano is pain. Yeah. Here's a fun one, right? If you buy a subscription, hypothetically you pay £20 a month for unlimited coffee, but you don't like coffee. You get, you know, this was £2.30 that I didn't pay because of that subscription. It's actually free for the first month. I'm probably cancelling after that first month too. If you pay, did I save £2.30 by getting a coffee that again, an iced Americano, I otherwise would not be buying? It's a fun question because the answer is clearly no. I mean, I'm saving whatever I otherwise would pay. If they said, would you have this for 50p? I'd say go on then, and I'd tap my card. But would I pay $2.30? No. Did I save the 50p or the £2.30? They're two different ways of accounting. Same thing with like, you know, my e-scooter, I paid an embarrassing amount of money for it. If you're not in the e-scooter hobby, you know, just over a grand, in case you get 1195. You know, what is the value of that determined by what I paid? Is it determined by what I could sell it for, or is it determined by what I would pay to get that exact same thing today? Because now that I'm not riding it, I don't think I wouldn't pay $1,200 right now. I need a better deal than that. I think I got a pretty nice deal given the battery size and the power of the scooter. But you know, what value should you use for it? Mental accounting. And so if it's hard enough to account for money, which is a fixed object, how do you account for happiness? Like, me doing this video is taking away an hour of my life. But in exchange, I make a video that, like, the sort that I really enjoy. Like I mentioned, I just find these fascinating to watch, and so making them, it makes me feel like I'm doing something. You know, I'm not making, you know, boots with a little plaque on it. I'm not making a gourmet Mexican burger restaurant. Don't get me wrong, I'm not doing one of these great services for humanity. But what I am doing is I feel like, yeah, I've done something, you know? So I get that little bit of fulfillment, but also I just really enjoy doing it. Like I said, I find something so interesting about sharing information. There's something very, very interesting about just finding those little tidbits that people find interesting and sharing those tidbits with people who find them interesting as well. The fact that, like, blows my mind that like 20,000 people a video, sometimes a lot more, watch my second channel videos where I'm just like, here are some weird geography facts I'm going to show on Google Maps because I spend too much time looking at Google Maps. So here's some of the things I found. I love that people are involved. I love that people find that interesting too. I like that any number of people watch these videos. There's no good sense for it, but yet they do. This is terrible, by the way. Every sip I take, I regret, and I'm like, I'll just put that down again. Maybe I've just got to sip a lot of it. Maybe if I just drink a lot at once, it gets okay. No, it's not. It's not okay. I just wanted a frappuccino. They just don't sell them. And so instead, I suffer through this coffee. Oh, truly awful too. Also, caffeine's like, I have some caffeine stories, but basically it messes me up in a good way, but like not in a way that makes me like, I think a lot of people feel like they're improved by caffeine or they're made normal by caffeine. But, oh wait, here's happiness accounting, right? How do you work out the value of me losing this hour versus the value of feeling like I've done something good and having some fun? Most people say, yeah, do the thing that's fun, self-care. But you don't get to just make unlimited do-what-you-want self-care decisions, do you? Like, even if you're redesigning your day from scratch, there are limitations on what you can design into your day. Oh, now we're at Tower Gateway. Huh, I guess I do know way through London. It's weird because I was trying to go east and I've just ended up hitting the river again, but from a different bridge. Whatever, this works, I guess. Again, you can tell my unfamiliarity with East London, despite my intention to potentially move there. I have been looking around at least. Don't wanna spoil that, tell anyone. I'd much rather live somewhere that's already been gentrified, you know, than somewhere like in the process, but you know, you live with what you get sometimes. You live with what you get. Also, look, there's the Shard. Isn't that nice? Tallest building in the EU when it was in the EU. The building is now no longer in the EU. I think there was something called the Sharks-it. A Sharks-it, I don't know. Man, there's no light between there and here, whatever. This road's confusing, okay? You get me? You don't get me. Also, I don't know how the zones really work in London. Oh, look at that guy on the scooter. I'm so jealous. That's the dream. That is the dream. Living life good. Don't care if it's illegal. Just doing it anyway. He's standing up for my rights better than I'm standing up for my rights. Isn't that interesting? He doesn't even know he's doing it, but he is. He's done a good thing for me. And in the eyes of the Karens who are like, oh, but I think the scooters are dangerous. He's done a real bad thing. He's making the world a worse place for her. Because you're in a city, you get so much of both. People are doing their interesting things, and you don't get any control over it. It's just happening all around you. Cities are a place of chaos, but the really good cities are somehow utilize that chaos in a way that makes good things happen. And I think that's so interesting. Don't you? Don't you? Anyway, speaking of things that are interesting, yeah, that's it. There's nothing interesting to say. No, so happiness accounting, right? Like, so obviously it goes very much without saying that you can't, man, it's so busy on this bridge. It goes without saying, in my opinion, that you can't do exactly what you'd like every minute of every day. Even if you're like, yeah, actually, I'm going to redesign my day from scratch. There are some things you have to do. And even the idea of like, let's minimize what we have to do. Like, to me, that's one of my like ideal objectives that I don't think I follow. And I don't think it's actually a good thing to follow for me. The idea of like, yeah, let's minimize the things that I have to do. Because there are some things that you have to do that by having to do them, they make you feel better. There's this weird thing as humans, but responsibility does have some good feels to it in a way you wouldn't otherwise expect. Also, now that I'm not drinking it, this is just like a hand cooler, yeah, like a cool thing in my hand, but it's a very cold day. So, you know, really, if you think about it, that free coffee has added negative value to my life. It's not the value I'd buy it for. It's not the value I'd sell it for. Yeah, I think I'd give it away for free. I think I would even pay someone to take it off my hands, like 6p or something. Yeah, if you said, yeah, give me those coppers in your pocket, in exchange, I'll take your coffee off you. I think I'd take that. Because, or would I just drop it on the floor and say, yeah, you can have it? Maybe I'd do that second one. So you can make up hypotheticals all you like, but when they conflict with reality, they get very different, huh? Anyway, so working out how to account for happiness is real hard, because how do you even know what will make you happy before you do it? There's this really weird thing. I find everyone who, especially when you do physical work all day, you're exhausted, or if you're really mentally working, but when you're working hard, let's say, physically or mentally, or a combination of the two, when you get home, your brain needs to recover, or your body needs to recover, or your brain and your body need to recover. And so you want to do things that you'll find enjoyable. You know, when you get home, that's the life you're trying to live. But you're just a pile of mush. You just lay there and you do the easy thing. And so in those situations, I say, yeah, that's why you need to make the easy thing the thing you want it to be. You gotta, that's what I think the art and happiness accounting is trying to make sure the thing you do when you don't really have, when you're not really thinking about it, is a thing that makes you happy. And that's complex. It's also very non-specific, arguably bad advice, but I also think it's very interesting advice. Also, yeah, I wonder why this bridge is so busy. Is it always busy? I think I've been across here once before and it was pretty empty, but it was also in the middle of the day. Maybe because it's a Sunday, everyone's like going on their one exercise a day, which definitely no one is breaking. That's definitely, I want it to be known. Kind of like, you know, when we look back at the war and the effort everyone made, we have this big illusion in our head that like, yeah, everyone pitched in. Nah, not everyone pitched in. Most people didn't pitch in. We just had this spirit of everyone's doing it to guilt trip you into also doing it. And maybe guilt tripping as a society is a more valuable lesson. Or maybe that removes a lot of the fun. But real quick, I want to head on the right here. I want to show you across this water, because this, bridges, honestly, you know what? I'm doubling down my point that I'm making a whole video about. Bridges are nice, huh? Bridges be real nice. Anyway, I hope you had a lovely day today. I hope that if you've not been having some good days, you work out how to make more happiness in them. It's a very hard thing to do. And it sounds so easy, just do the things you want to do. But what do you want to do? When do you spend time to work it out? You know, it seems so dumb. One of the things I spend some time doing in my week, it feels like a waste every time I do it. But in retrospect, I think there's some value in it. Working out what you want to do with some of your free time. You know, like using some of your free time to work out what you want to do with the rest of your free time. Having a plan for your free time seems dumb. It seems counterintuitive. It seems against the very concept, even, perhaps you could say. But I also think it really helps. Maybe just me, maybe not everyone, but I think it helps. And speaking of things that help, this is the Thames. That's how you pronounce it. It's definitely not the Thames. It's all gone. Walking through a horde of people. Exactly what I love. And this is Tower Bridge. So, just to finish the video on some history facts, you're not getting any valuable lesson from me today. Once every so often, they have to raise this bridge, so it's like literally like up and downy like that. And it lets boats through, because it's a low bridge, unlike a lot of the other ones. And so when a big boat needs to go, for instance over there, they have to raise the bridge. And it's so interesting to me just how modern it looks when you're on here, because it's such a historic bridge. And also, when most people think of London Bridge, they're saying London Bridge, which is that bridge over there, but they're thinking Tower Bridge, this one over here. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, because I'll see you all in another one. Unless I don't die in a house fire or something. Good thing about being outside is there's not many house fires. I guess in London, it's been 334 years, 354 years since the last big house fire. Let's hope another one doesn't start, huh? But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.